Excellent. Hello, world. This is the Interpretives Temple of Podlair, and we're going to be discussing, as we do, um, generally things that have large idea value, large patterns that cross over into many different realms. That's something that the NES powers specialize in. And so today we're going to be talking about the relationship to one's other or unconscious genius, and how what is that relationship? How does it relate in spirit form versus a projected real-world form? And what is one's role to do that life feat? It's a heroic feat, and as everything else, there's a way you can do it as best as possible, and that's what we're going to be discussing. It'll be an ongoing topic. All right, so introductions, and then I'll set the scene a little bit, and we'll just have a little panel discussion. I am Nai G. Coach.
I am Zaini Chinese.
I'm Zaini Ademus.
I'm Nigel Mitchell.
This is Naiji Glenn.
And Nisha Starglow.
Excellent. Okay, so there's 5 principles that my spirits wanted to make sure we had an understanding of. A lot of this you probably will know already and just or instinctually know, but I wanted to put it out there spelled out as principles. First one, well, I guess there's no particular order, but one of the 5 is that the world, the other that you'll have in the world, examples, for example, like of the gender mojo that you find appealing most for your ideal inspirational, it's never going to be like it is with your spirit form, your spirit friend, your spirit guide, other. An example I'll give to kind of highlight that is Frazetta, the artist, Frank Frazetta. His renderings of what clearly look like probably Nishai ladies, they are extremely voluptuous, and they exude a kind of like exotic danger. And interesting enough, people asked him about that, like, you like women with ample bosoms and booty and so forth, and he said, actually, that's just how it gets hyperized when I see it in my, my visioning. But his wife of, many, many years is like a clean-cut, all-American, very fit, outdoorsy type. Like, not like that, actually. And that's crucial that he seemed to be able to commune with his other in a way he was doing art, but he also had a persona, and he said he preferred that. That's what he liked. So it's important to note that sometimes there may be large differences in what may seem like obvious riff patterning. So, for example, in his wife, you'll see that she'll sometimes do like nude things and play on bongo drums in a very whimsical, natural way, innocent. And he's done some really nice sketches of those over the years. And you can see she likes being exotic. She likes doing those things, but the physical form she inhabits actually is closer to what he likes. But he doesn't draw that. I mean, didn't. He's passed away now. But he didn't draw that way. So the visions he had in his head, they were of a certain kind of energy. And a lot of times when the energy is given to you in your mind's eye, it may translate to a certain form. You can't just go around the world looking for that exact form. It won't work like that, if that makes sense. Okay. A lot of people are confused on that. They see what they see in their mind's eye. They think that they should see the closest approximation to that in the world, but it won't work in that literal fashion.
Yeah.
What you're seeing
I get it.
is an energetic personification, and then actually a lot of times you'll be seeing things other people don't really see natively, and that's a cool thing to have. That part of it is cool. All right. The other one is in reverse. Next principle. Your experiences in the world are going to affect what the riffs of your other you've seen in human form and have been exposed to, and how that relates to your life experience, whether you've had lots of money or not had money, whether you've been around a very educated environment or a backward environment. Things of this nature will affect the riffs you've seen. Now, any riff of your other human form will inspire a lot of activity with your spirit forming. And that's good. But you don't want to actually take that to where you are trying to get your other, which is a higher holistic form of your other half, from what you're getting in the world. Because what's in the world is always going to be, to some extent, especially now, but even in the future, it's always to some extent going to be limited and tainted. So the world doesn't operate as best it can, and so there will be warpage. All rifts in the real world have warpage to them. That needs to be understood. So going into your mind's eye and trying, for example, like I saw some person at my work. They are the mojo that I find very, very appealing, and now I'm going to use them in my mind's eye to dialogue with in the way they dialogue. The first things will happen is your spirits will take that form, but it won't speak the same way or say the same things. It'll say higher things, more important things, and you have to let that happen. All right. Third, continual exploration. You can never have arrived at like, this is what my other is, and this is what I like, and this is what we do. That can never be that way, or you are not doing it right. For sure, that's wrong. Always you should be exploring and seeing what new way you can look at the relationship with your other, because if you're doing it right, you'll keep redefining it, and in the process redefining yourself to be more holistic and accurate. Fourth, your other is a constant companion. A lot of people feel that like if they don't have a human form to project on, that they are just going to lose the signal to their other. It doesn't work like that. Your other is always with you. It's just a question of you call to your other and do the right things to make that connection. But prior to being sexualized, all of us actually have a very strong connection to our other. That's just how humans work. And so if you can tap into that connection, you'll have the ultimate companion that completes you, and that can be in any situation, even when you're alone. Fifth and last one is the proper attitude spiritually to be dialoguing with your other is crucial, because most people have a lot of Daru on them. That's just the way life has been in civilization for a while. Is making yourself worthy. Understanding it more, that's the exploration part, but then this piece is being worthy. That should be your focus. Being worthy to be with your other. Otherwise, it's very hard to resist using your other as a fix. You know what I mean? I need some love in my life. I'm Nigel. I need some lift. I need some this or that. You can't do it like that. You get those things by being the right person. So you have to be worthy to be with your other and have your other want to be around you, and then you'll get bonuses. But you can't want it for the bonuses. If you want it for the bonuses, that's a low form. It keeps you in Daru. All right. Those are kind of the main principles. With that, I'll just hand it off. Anybody want to get started?
I'll just chime in with on the note that you said about that everyone always has the connection to their other prior to even becoming sexualized. And I think you've alluded to this before, and I've had the same experience. I don't know if you guys have, in terms of like my other doesn't always come in human form. It comes in, and it's not necessarily like a sexualized interaction when I do interact with my other. I mean, there can be those times, but a lot of times it comes to me in the form of animals like that that embody like characteristics of my other, or like a land or something that I'm envisioning that's really inspiring to me. It could be like a foreign land or just some. So it doesn't necessarily come to me as in a humanized form. Yes, I'll just put that out there.
That's cool. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I've had that too. Well, I have always had an affinity for dragons, and it's of course that ended up being that the totem that's the spirit form animal for Naiji. I never would, but that's always been wolves and dragons have always been my constant companions, and also my Uther rarely comes to me in a fleshed out face that I know, or that I know him because that is he. But a lot of times he's in a hood, and the character of the Dark Ranger type of character where he's traveling in and out, and uh, just that. But that there's this energy of protector and always doing the right thing that comes with him. But I rarely see a face. In fact, I don't even associate a face with him at all.
I get
the
that.
energy comes to you as a male energy.
Oh, yeah, well, I'm heterosexual, so of course that's not always going to be the case, but I happen to be, so...
But since you get to the face, you kind of just more know the being. You just know they're there. You know their energy, right?
It's a humanoid. It's a guy. It is a male, and obviously a male form. But it tends to be in that ranger hooded, can't really see his face sort of thing. So I rarely have I don't actually have a face that I associate with him. The face is like really irrelevant because what I know is his presence. That is what. And I think that's maybe for me that has to do with my knee and all of the possibilities, because I don't need to tie him down to a specific.
I think there's that, but I also think that everyone's relationship with their other, it's more than a humanoid personified form. Two things. One is that to be admired by your other just feels like the greatest. That is the inspiration. And it can be, like Jillian was saying, it could be like a magnificent animal that exudes a certain kind of code or quality or whatever as you like it. It's impressive. You're like, I want that creature to allow me to pet it when others don't get to pet it. You know what I mean? It's something simple as that, because it means that there's a special connection with a special being. That's really cool. The other one is that you can have it to where you just know the other is there, even though they're not physically present. Going off what you're saying there, Starglobe, I watch Naked and Afraid, and there's a lot of Nijai females on there that are quite strong and spiffy and very naturalistic, and I really like that riff a lot. And so, like you were saying, though, when I'm in my visioning, a lot of times I don't see their faces. If I do, they're usually some purple alien with butterfly wings. Rainbow butterfly wings. No, but what I actually feel more is like I'm being watched, or I'm in a forest that creature either is or has eyes everywhere. And so this makes sense. When they would do certain things in Naked Afraid, where like the other partner would do something good, and they would just be positive about it. I wouldn't even. So it's not a facial thing. I just kind of remember that feeling of like, ooh. Yeah. If I was the person who did that, I would be getting that reaction. I can kind of feel it a little bit. So in my visions, I may be running around some forest somewhere, and if I do a good job, though, I'll get that tickle. So even though when I say it updates your understanding of your other, it doesn't have to be like in a physical way. It's something like, ooh, that's an interaction that Nijai do when they're pleased.
Right.
You know what I mean? I just kind of note that, and then when I'm in my dreams or whatever, like, no one's even there sometimes. I just kind of like, I treat like an animal that's wounded nicely, and I kind of feel like the forest likes me now. You know what I mean? But likes me in a way that tickled like the Naked and Afraid scene did. So.
And like I read Dragon Riders of Pern, like the entire series, really as a young girl, and so the telepathic connection with the riders and their dragon is really a big motif for me with my Uther. That we are one telepathic connection sort of thing is a really big motif for me in that.
I'd like to. That's for sure. I think that's one that a lot of people are going to have here. I would think is we have a lot of readers. So reading is going to be an easy way to kind of do that, because then you don't even have to go to the specific human form. You can kind of just make whatever spirits want to make it when you're reading the description of the essence of that person, that scene. I'd like to hear from some other people as well. Anyone else have initial thoughts? Anything at all?
I had talked about in the previous Interpretives Temple about how when making music, then I project my other onto the audience or onto the spirit of a audience, and kind of dialogue with her that way. But just other things going along the lines of the other being a non-human. Earlier this year, during the summer, I had been spending a lot of time at the beach, and I'd started teaching myself how to surf. And I'd found myself like projecting my other onto the ocean and the waves, and conceptualizing it as respecting her power, like the force of her power, learning how to surf her instead of like surfing it, you know?
Right.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It is. And nature actually allows for, I think, some of the purest, kind of projecting of your other in that way.
Mm-hmm.
Although the human form interaction gives a special kind of sophistication that only human-to-human interaction has. But a lot of other options give different bonuses that human projection doesn't give. So the upside is your other can do all of them. It can do any and all of those, and at the same time. It doesn't have to the order or whatever.
Yeah, and projecting your other onto beats like that, that they really supercharge you,
Mm-hmm.
ultimately inspiring.
For sure. How about
Yeah, that's an interesting idea. Sorry.
please go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, because I actually don't get a lot of connection like that from nature. Maybe because I grew up in Sao Paulo, which is like a very, it's very it's like urban, totally. It's like concrete jungle. So I don't get a lot of that from nature, I guess. But I do get a lot of that from my computer. And just like the way that I interface with my computer, I think of it like sort of like this mini spaceship that I jump into, and like I can surf on the internet, and like it's always going forward. It's always sort of like weaving in and out like this, and it's sort of like and it has like multiple arms that it can like stretch out. Like it can stretch out like 8 arms, like an octopus, and grab things from multiple places. And I sort of think like, well, I guess that's sort of like what I'm doing, but my other is sort of like the fuel, the direction, the charge. Like I had this dream the other day. I was like walking along in a country road at night, and it was dark, and there was a bunch of people with me, and we were like sort of running away from something. I'm always like running away in my dreams. It's probably a very niche thing to do, to think like it's always just like trying to escape. Gotta go. Something's trying to catch me. And so off in the distance, this huge thing, kind of like the Washington Monument, just pierces through the ground, just like goes, and it's like purple and black and glowing, and I'm like, and it looks like something from like Ghostbusters or something. It's just like very surreal. Like the scene at the end of Ghostbusters when they're like in the tower or something. It looks just like that. It's like terrifying. So we all just like start sprinting. And then when I woke up, I was like, I realized that probably was some sort of symbolism for my other, which was, just like this massive thing. Like we're all just like running away, and then suddenly this huge massive thing comes up, and it's like, how do we deal with it? And there was this undertone that it was gonna get you. It's gonna get you, So we all had to run away, and that was part of it. So all these things, like the computer as a vehicle, mostly for me, but that's sort of how I communicate with the other, almost like I'm in a spaceship, and then I'm talking to the other, like she's like in the control panels or whatever, giving me directions and things like that. But
if you don't mind, I want to pass on to another person here, but if I, a quick question for you on that. Is there then like a sense of validation when this getting away mission is successful?
Yeah, it's not. It's the getting away is often from like Z or Vi institutional forces.
Right.
It's
So
often like
that's what I'm saying. So that seems like a modulation, which is going to be part of the relationship as well. Is there something you're getting away to? Is there something, did that ever come up?
I don't know. Like dreams are like usually when the darkest forces like pounce on me. So a lot of that is Daryu energy.
Right.
Um,
But also know that your others in your conscious and unconscious mind, and even during, let's say, daydreams during the day, or just drifting, you'll still have a connection.
yeah, absolutely. But like you've described your dreams as being like a lot of like pressure put on you, a lot of like stimulation on you. So that's like a lot of V, I guess, pressure coming into you. I get a lot of
Like I said, also is that is sometimes when you get jumped a bit in your dreams if you have a stressful life, but in the waking you can still get into that kind of state, that quasi state, and be more in control. And that's when like I said, I focus with Nexi on the good stuff, getting the greater good, and enjoying ourselves as best we can under the circumstances in the process, and that's what keeps me going. Because if it was just what was in the dream sometimes, which can be a bit stressful, then that wouldn't be complete. I wouldn't be able to keep going like I do. It's that even the dreams, I try to actually do lucid dreaming as I can to exert will to break out of just the Daryu is on you, and you want to get you and your other to safety, which is cool. I mean, that's what you want to have happen. But you also want to spend time focusing on, which I'm sure you do in your art and so forth. I was just curious how. So you're talking about in your dreams, it's mainly the Daryu kind of stuff.
a lot of that.
Yeah, 'cause I have that as well, and I think that won't be uncommon. When I dream, a lot of times the stresses of life kind of jump on me a little bit, and so I'll be running around trying to keep myself in iterations of my other safe from harm.
Do
Before you jump in and start, if you don't mind, if you hold that thought, you may jot down. I do make sure I get from everyone, and I haven't heard really from Mitchell and Glenn yet.
So just our experiences.
Yeah, just some general thoughts. Anything that comes to your mind right now, even if it's just going off of what other people said, and it kind of stimulates you to think something or whatever.
All right. Well, I actually do have some. I mean, one area too where I've kind of related to my other through like media infusions. That was something you mentioned. I think is in like video games. So I used to be a big Pokemon fan. I mean, I still am, but I don't know, I play a lot anymore. But there are particular ones where I think to some degree I projected the spirit form my other one and other onto, and playing with those ones and trying to win with them would just make the experience feel more worthwhile and more magical. And I think there are some that Nijai map particularly well onto. Like there's this one Mew, who's this really mysterious Pokemon that can learn basically any move. It's very diverse, and it kind of seems like a Spirit Force creature to me. So you can, I posted the link if you want to see it.
Oh, thank you. Gotcha. Nice.
Yeah, but it's actually really powerful. But it's got that.
So cute.
I do really like how the anime, as a general kind of art form, they embrace Ni a lot more. They have a lot of very powerful, characters.
Yeah, its power is not just in its stats too; it's in its diversity. You can learn any move. That's his strategy.
It's pretty boss.
It's very new to me. Well, no other Pokemon can do that, and it's kind of fun to win with that sort of strategy. You can do a lot of cool, creative things that you couldn't do with other Pokemon, where they win with more like brute force. But then, his counterpart is Mewtwo, who seems more like an IG, more intense, more
angry,
more angry.
Satisfied. Yeah. It's actually almost uncanny how it is like very symbolic, symbolizing the vision storyline with them.
Yeah, and they don't have genders, so it shows that it can be, as far as I know, beyond that. But I mean, they just sort of signify the spirit forms of the configurations to some extent.
Very cool. I like that a lot.
Yeah, and Mewtwo's doesn't have as diverse of a moveset, but the moveset that he has, like his stats are more bonus stacked on specific like focus stuff, and they're really powerful at that. Like he's really fast and has high special attack, so he can just kind of beat people with a punch.
Very cool.
Nice.
Glenn, do you do any of these like the games or the movies or maybe just real life where anything at all? Actually, I don't lead you. What do you feel like throwing in as initial kind of thoughts?
Well, I feel like when it comes to my other, I don't really spend necessarily like time actively thinking about my other per se. It's usually me just having certain things that I like have that I want to get done, certain kind of goals that I have, and I'm always just like working towards them. And then there's like the meeting of the goal, and then there's sort of like what it feels like when you actually get there, but then there's always something more that needs to be done, and then you need to continue moving forward in that way. And so that's kind of like the way that I feel most of the days, usually just feeling like that.
That makes sense. That makes sense because Naiji are very driven in that way. But one thing I think you'll note, because if you don't, you'll burn out, is when you do these flag forwards that, you know, natively being a directive, it's going to feel good to do, but then there's usually some headspace that you get as a reward. Like if you are supposed to get this good on a test by this time and you do it, there's that reward of I'm doing well, I'm winning. A bit of euphoria, and when that happens, a greater creativity and insight onto how you can plan your next flag forward. So even, does it make sense? So when you drive, you know, you kind of like drive, even like a hard-going, you know, campaign, taking ground, you have to kind of surge and then let the troops enjoy themselves at least a little bit. Get something from the flags forward they're getting. Some reward for having gotten that flag forward, even if it's just allowing yourself to vision yourself in a more Fumasta way. You'll need your other with you to vision the more Fumasta way. And one thing Naiji, for example, like do a lot is you do a flag forward, you push hard for a week or a month, a year, whatever, you get this thing done, and the reward is, besides whatever worldly reward there is, I get to see myself in my head, in my visions, in a new way. I'm allowed. I'm allowed to vision myself more Fumasta now. I've earned that. But just note, when you do that, it's not like you're just going apparatus to Fumasta. Your other will always be involved if you're actually Fumasta. So you get the flags forward, it should be like, oh, I went out and I hunted and I did really, really well, and you come back to the tent. And when you come back to the tent, you should be connected to your other before you go back out for the next hunt. If you stay out hunting, that won't work. You'll break down. Or if you go hunt and come back to the tent but don't rally up with the other, you're missing kind of like a major bonus stack. And you look at a video game. That's kind of the way to look at it. You beat a level, like Naiji, you beat the level. But you have to have the in-between the level screens where you get to go, ooh, my character gets this now. I get to buy the special magic sword, or I can do this or that. Like using, I won, I got a flag forward, and now I get bonuses. Your other will like, particularly Jez Hunters, their other will like to go like leveling up, upgrading, shopping with you. And that's your really, and so that might be how you experience your others, like, ooh, I got this flag forward, and I get some coin now, and whatever, and I can spend it on my character sheet. Your other, you'll want your other with you when you are like, how am I going to expend my XP in my character sheet in order to do it as best.
I think, that's a good point, because actually there is that point that I made before, which is like the working towards the goals and stuff. But then I sort of like, okay, so I need to sort of like give myself a little bit of a, like, exactly like that, like a reward at the end of the day where I can maybe like spend some time, maybe watch a movie or something, maybe do something like that. And or sometimes it's just sort of like there's something that's like that I discover on the internet. It's sort of like this really interesting new topic or this new idea. And it's really like forward thinking, and so like I wouldn't probably, I don't know how I came across it necessarily, but it's sort of like it's really interesting, and I'm like researching and really getting into it, and it feels really good to like learn about that and get like it's sort of like, yeah, I'm gonna do this next. It feels really good to kind of get into that mode. Like, yeah, this is like really cool and interesting. I'm like, oh, and then I just can't help I can't help but just like keep thinking about like, I'm gonna do it like this, and this is how that's gonna work, and just the ideas, they just start pouring out in that way, which is really it keeps me going in that way. So the burning out, I can see how that would happen if it was just sort of like work, because that I know what that's like, and that's sort of that's what.
No, I didn't think that's what you were doing. So that's why I was just conceptualizing your relationship to your other. Like, I don't think about that much. I'm like, you may because so often the others seem to talk in like a personified way, but simply completing you and rejuvenating you, that could be how it is. You can be like flag forward, and I'm rewarded now with rejuvenation and validation that I'm going the right way.
Mm-hmm.
That rejuvenation, validation, that can be your other. It doesn't have to have like any kind of personified interaction.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. Okay, I'd like to do another couple rounds of questions here. I have some like things to throw in there and let people have at it. One is, are there any experiences you can remember, and it can be anything at all, media or personal encounter, or just you got in a certain headspace one day, listening to music, whatever, anything at all, where you noted a spike in your interaction or your understanding of your other. I'll say myself quickly, because I've already mentioned before, is Naked and Afraid. A lot of the nijai that we see more of are from music and movies and things of that nature, and the nijai that I naturally are able to understand a bit easier are when they're a little more feral, and so the ones that actually are naked afraid, it isn't I don't find the other ones appealing, it's just that this is a little easier for me to understand how I fit in. You mean the way they interact, that the kind of naked afraid, more like outdoorsy, nature-loving nijai, a little more rugged. That dialogue reminds me a bit of how I have naturally with Nexi, and so it increased. And Charlene knows, like, I always look forward to those episodes come out. We both do, because they tend to have romantics in there who are a bit less Hollywood kind of romantics. They're more like, outdoorsy, just nature-loving kind of type. Like, oh, I could see myself talking to that person. I can envision that fairly easily. So anyway, that's just one for me that I know is like, oh, I look forward to that show specifically because I'm like, oh, yeah, I can see how that would work. Anyone else? Start first.
I know there's probably.
You get a lot of Genii action at work. One, because you have to kind of take lead so much in the projects, and you have a lot of Genii that you work with. In fact, is your immediate supervisor?
My supervisor Genii, and also my other coworkers are Genii also. I think that for me, when talking about the work relationships, because of having Genii around me, and Genii males and Genii females, I think with both, in different ways, they give me that feedback from an other, and I do not like I hang by every word they say or like every reaction, but when I do something, that's like an accomplishment, then I get validated by them. That it does, it feels good. It validates my psyche. It boosts my confidence. It's
because you've done those. You're like,
because it's more and more than it would be by another mojo. If another mojo were to react to something that I had done, and like an accomplishment or flag forward. So.
Yeah, because any social alchemy, they can give validation, but only the ideal inspirational can give that sort of one-to-one, all the channels that, well done. You know what I mean? Like the other half of the story saying, yep, well done on half the story you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, and for me, it's to elaborate on that. For me, like I don't know, gender sometimes are fluid for me personally. So for both from both women and men who are Jinai, I feel an other connection too. So
Makes sense.
personally.
I think, let's see, I think I've had a couple or several that I've noticed an immediate impact on my energy, spirit forming, and peaking. One example would be, okay, so I watch a lot of vloggers on YouTube or just like YouTube personalities in general. And instinctively, I was mainly attracted to the Xenai, and then finding out that they're Xenai and other Xenai, that it gave greater meaning to the ones that I was already into. But as far as so there's two things with that. One is that it made me more aware of Xenai females who are more my age and think like my generation thinks, and acts how my generation acts. Because before that, when we had our Xenai samples were like a lot of politicians, and so 40 years and up. That generational gap kind of makes it a little bit harder to connect to, but when you actually start seeing them that's around your age group and is into the things you're into and thinks the way that you think in a way that's a bit more detached from the old ways, more rebellious from the old ways, then that it brings brings the storyline a lot closer to you, and also kind of showed me how when I peak and speak, say insights or say my positions on things, how it's actually hitting my other than how she is then implementing it or doing something with it. Because that's kind of the end of the peaking cycle, where as a Zione I experience that I have all of these things in my head, and getting them out there's difficulty to that. There's a struggle that comes with that, but ultimately the goal is to like change the world with them for the better. And when I got a closer connection to these vlogger Xenais, and that becomes much more clear that when you muster up the courage to kind of say insights or implement insights, then there's going to be this net of the other that catches them, and then they do something with it. Either they do something with it, or it steals them. It protects them from something else that they're being attacked with. Let's see. Another example, I think, had to do with some time ago I started going to like tech conferences, startup conferences, or in the tech business. And one thing that popped out was there was a bunch of Xenai ladies there. Seeing that energy, and also like having a chance to talk with a lot of them, then that also kind of made this concept of that net that I'm talking about, where if you build it, they will come. If you stay, right, they will listen. That kind of creates this spirit of like the other end of the story will catch your story when you make the journey to meet them, which all of a sudden gave me all this energy to start doing things and start implementing ideas that I'd had.
That's a great insight. That's a very good insight. Two things on that. One is I want to ask Charlene how that thing you mentioned about being a tower light, being able to steal his other, for because they're very much going out there and like pushing his pilots, knowing that they're really strong that way, but you give something special that they need. Because we know that actually in negative critical times where the Xenai tend to be very strong, but they can have like a wobbliness, they're wobbly.
Yeah, and they're always going, and they need something that will help create a space for them to center themselves.
Hmm.
Otherwise they burn out or get a little reckless.
Where the towers come
Right.
in.
For sure.
Yeah, definitely with the recklessness, because with the Xeni, if they're in trouble, then they might just start ramping up the Zhai, and when they start ramping up the Zhai, then all of a sudden they're shaking and things and seeing less clearly. But I see the things that I naturally give allows them to be calm or keep equilibrium while dealing with high pressure.
And you bring up two elements there that I want to touch on. Really good insight there, Demas. One is that the story will catch you, because that's something, for example, if you're in an environment where your native storyline, whatever it is not really having an easy go of it, you may want to plan your peaking out of foreseeable moves that the environment allows. But if you actually have a connection to your other, like you're saying, like a net, they'll catch you. You're like, I feel more confident being a Zaini, knowing that natural law made Zenez. Human species has a network of Zenez. If I just do Zaini well, I'm going to naturally link up with that. But otherwise, humans have a native fear that I have these ideas, these passions, and things I'm into. If I try them out, there will be nothing. The world, you're kind of taught that way. You know what I mean? A lot of like fear-mongering models where like you have to do it this way because otherwise nature will just gut you. But actually, no, nature is evolved that you have your other all out there in the species waiting to catch you and complete you. So if you do what you're supposed to be doing, there is, the system of it, there's actually going to be a completion of your story unit. Mm-hmm. The other one, as a part of that you also kind of hit on, Demas, is value. Because everyone's other, they're very, very impressive, so you would want that person to find you admirable, and you have the thing their character sheet needs. It instantly makes you feel I'm valuable, because a lot of people walk around, they're not valuable. Ideas like original sin, for example, but just generally people don't feel like, if I haven't gotten a college degree or made a lot of money or had a lot of sex or published certain things or famous, whatever it is, then I haven't yet achieved value. But your other says you automatically have value. A super steady hero desperately needs what you got. Very cool. Thoughts on that? I'm curious. Anyone else?
Yeah, I actually I've had a pretty intense experience, I guess, with my other in many respects. Like what you're saying about not having world of validation. At some point, basically, my other showed me ideas. I haven't even posted them on the forum. There's songs that I made a while ago. It's kind of like what I'm doing now with the riffing, except even more, because riffing is for me like it's not my primary task in life. My primary task in life is making music, and then I have other subtasks like software, mojo reading, all these things that I do as an addendum to help my music. But I had some really intense experiences with music making. First of all, there was other stuff relating to
you've mentioned this sentiment before, and I understand it, but I think I have to put some clarification there, because myself, I am a Kensei, and in Pod Lair, you notice that we have a term called Kensei. So the idea of devoting your life to a thing to, be enlightened, that's totally within Pod Lair. However, Kensei is about as high as you can do that. But within the concept of being a Kensei in something, it's never above it. Music is a way to understand it. And for humans, that's peaking. So music allows you to peak. Now, I understand that music may be more important than mojo reading for you or any other facet particular to Pod Lair disciplines specifically. But the primary thing that all humans are doing mathematically is they're peaking. And so Nijai are peaking all around the world as Nijai, either they're peaking well or they're not, and there are various forms you can do, and music can be the one that you make your Kensei. that you use your primary truth beacon to go find your way out in the world. But there is nothing that trumps one's peak pathway.
No, I'm not. Yeah, that's basically what I'm trying to say. I mean, I'm talking about my own personal talents and inclinations. Like if I jot down on paper how much time I spend on music versus how much time I spend on mojo reading versus how much time I spend on software, it basically goes in that order.
Right.
It's not to say, yeah.
But exactly, but it's important. It might confuse people. What you said is totally true. But the Z of it is, if you add up the hours that you were peaking, it was 24/7, 365.
Yeah, no, I mean...
what you said is good Z, but you have to actually include the most hours spent doing, and most hours spent doing was peaking.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just sort of simplifying it. And I mean, yeah, that's like a bigger picture, like more...
Well, no, they're simplifying, but you gave a hierarchical order of basically your life calling. And so very important that even a Ken say, the activity you're using to peak with and understand existence does not trump the peaking process or the meaning of existence. Those actually are the highest thing. Everything is a conduit to learn that truth beacon. And music's a wonderful truth beacon.
Yeah, I guess what I'm doing is separating mojo reading from peaking, and in between the two of them, there's music.
Yeah.
Like peaking is
I figured that's what you were doing. It's just that some people listening, when they hear that separation you made, they may get confused. And since the other element wasn't mentioned in the hierarchy at all, I kind of felt,
Yeah. Okay. So I just.
Ghost ranking kind of need to be spelled out there.
Yeah. No, just to be very clear, I mean, peaking is the thing that everyone does at maximally, and that's basically the root of all being, peaking.
Right. Exactly.
So that's why I left it out. It's because it's sort of assumed to be the number one thing for everyone.
Yeah, no, I know that sometimes if you assume, some of the audience might not get it.
Absolutely. That's what I meant by
It's not just a conversation among pod layer. It's a public conversation. So.
Sure. That's what I meant by simplifying. I'm leaving out the base layer, which is common to everyone.
Well, technically, that's not simplifying. That's abridging, which is
yeah.
And in this context, that is an important difference.
But you'll notice how I didn't put explaining worldviews or doing any sort of like articulation as any of the top ranking abilities. So
totally understood.
So I'm not claiming to be able to put it into words like that. But yeah, so the basic principle that I'm getting at is that okay, so the thing about my other and how she sort of like showed to me that there's a higher road that I can take. Like at some point I was going to school, like my family wanted me to get a job as like an engineer or something like normal, and I was doing that, and I also had a band, and like people around us were like, oh, you guys should like do the normal band thing and like sign a contract or whatever.
Right.
But it wasn't working out. I'm pretty sure it was myself, Anijai, a primary Naiji songwriter, and then I think two other Nijai. But the primary other person was a Naiji. And so there was this whole thing about like who owns the songs, like who's going to be the owner. I actually don't write any music, as you guys have seen. Like my whole thing, just as I don't do mojo reads originally, like I'm not good at that. But what I do is like,
I think it's to say you don't do it would be incorrect.
Well, I don't do it well.
And then your skill level, I think it's very early to be saying that.
Yeah, I don't. Well, I could do it, but the thing is,
it takes discipline.
It takes discipline. It's just a different way of thinking, though, because I don't feel any drive to write songs. Like, I don't actually, like a lot of Naiji musicians, they say, oh, I'm just close my eyes and, like, sit in silence and the songs come to me. That doesn't happen to me. But something similar does happen, is if I'm hearing something, then I'll start hearing other songs that remind me of this and this and this, and I can pile them up on top of each other, kind of like what I've been doing with mojo reading, riffing, but I can actually do that to an even greater degree with music, and I did that for a while, but then I just had like a mental breakdown. Like I was just like, I just lost my mind, and for like several years, I basically just like tried to shut out my other. I was just like, no, you don't exist. Like when I'm with my other, all this craziness happens, and like I just want to bash my head against the wall all day long. That's what it feels like, and I was just like, no, you go away, you know.
In addition to what you're saying is true, that can definitely happen, but it's important to note that the context, which is one's relation to their other, is the most wonderful thing that we know natural law is made of, that is observable. So it is the most incredible, wonderful thing. However, one's understanding of their other may not be where it needs to be to make a good flow. The environment could be actually putting a lot of stress, and it's a lot hard to have a good dialogue flow with any social alchemy in the world or in one's mind's eye if that pressure's on. So you'll have to kind of convert pressure into lift. The more inclement one's environment is, the more you'll have to get skillful at converting pressure into lift. It's just the way it'll have to be.
Yeah, that's basically what my other.
Third, real quick, and the third one is that the other charges one up like nothing else, and so one has to get a bit used to. We talk about like an encounter with a Jinai, you're having like you leave like and in the kind of there's like this level of being charged up that you have to get kind of used to surfing, and like if you've never had those waves, they'll really throw you around. So those three things combined: impingement, lack of understanding, and then the amount of energy that happens when you're really communing closely with your other.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of those things I've sort of come to accept. Going back to what you were saying about not having worldly validation through my other, because the way I stack up, if I stack up like 2 songs, like that's pretty normal. A lot of people put 2 songs together. Okay, 3 songs, that's getting up there. But I could actually sit there and stack up 5 songs just in my head and pulling it together. And I was actually also doing a lot of drugs, so I was pretty.
This relates to your other. How were you able to get a connection back through doing this?
Oh, so strong, man! Like I got such a strong connection, and I was like, okay, so this is my purpose in life. Like whatever I'm doing, there's something that has to do with this. And then later, like I would try to get a job or like work programming software, doing all these other things full time, and it just killed me. It literally made me like completely suicidal because I was like, I know what my mission is supposed to be. It has to do with like the stacking, cross-contextualizing thing. I didn't know what it was called. I didn't know what it was. I thought it was Nye, in fact, for a long time. But yeah, that was such a strong connection. And then when that went away, because that can't last forever. Like I can't just stay at that level forever. Even if I was to continue doing drugs, which I couldn't because like I just couldn't physically, financially. There was no way for me to do it at that rate and pace. But while I did it, it actually and I got some good Z scores out of that. Like the guy from the New Yorker. Like I got people that like know what they're talking about to say, hey, this is interesting. But for the most part, people are like, hey, this is a trivial, mildly amusing, semi-interesting thing that I will write down one line about. I was like, no, this is ridiculous. This is like, I took a song that's good and I put another good song on top of it and another one, and this is 7 goods, 8 good.
This we're talking about. Your other is going to be to appreciate that, and
yes.
that appreciation is what one needs, and so that gets into lining that up so that you can do a full peak pathway in the world. But you'll need to have that initial fuel. Obviously, you have to do your own momentum powers, but then to activate your other's momentum powers, that's the driving engines of everyone's storyline.
Yeah, I mean,
I need to get people in there as well, though. But that was really good. Thank you. I haven't heard too much from Mitchell and Glenn.
I think Starglow still needs to go too. Actually.
Oh yes, you're right. Starglow, you were holding on to something.
Right. So one of the things
Glenn.
my other often, yeah, thanks, Glenn. One of the things is my other is often just an energy at my back, bolstering my strength and courage. He's often more of that strong, silent type because that comes out of that introverted, ever-expanding Nye sort of thing that he knows all the answers, and I know those answers because I'm connected to him. But he provides Charlene was talking about this a little bit as the tower, but I kind of am the momentum tower, but I also
Yeah,
experience.
that's for sure. Yeah.
I
The
experience.
adapters, gatherers, and towers will always they'll have the momentum tower.
Right, but I experience him as the safe harbor, the creator of the safe space, from the home base for me to come back to, that I don't have to be tethered anywhere, that I can, because I have that safe home base, that I can go anywhere in safety because I have that home to come back to, and I can go back and gather the tools that I need, or the advice that I need, or the knowing, and be in total freedom about that. I don't have to carry my house with me, because my house is, and I say house in that
Worldview way.
right, that worldview house. I don't have to be tethered to any of that. My other often comes out as you were saying, the validation of, as a Nijai, as a unaware mojo, I often don't. I see every possibility that could possibly happen by this action that I've decided to take. And so it's sometimes difficult for me to make the more accurate, I guess, nigh prediction of that. So that nigh prediction that something I have chosen will be valuable, or is valuable in the now, is something that I don't have natively. He lists out something. Sometimes what I think of is just, that's just what I do, or that's just how I am, or that's just the way it is, and I devalue it as, well, that's not a very big deal because that comes easy to me, like that kind of thing. And he goes, well, no, because other people can't do that, and that is valuable, and that means, and there's this, that means something, and I don't have that native, that it means, there's this, because it's just it's just what is. It's not, I just see it. It is what is. That means something.
Charlene, you have one as a tower. I'm curious if Demas has this as well. We talk about she said mean something. Yours is going to have that as minor momentum, but for major momentum is you need to do something.
Yeah.
Because I can't just mull on it or sit on it. No, you have to do something,
Right.
and you have to do something in a timely manner.
Yeah.
Pilot. Go pilot.
Yeah, it's intense about, basically not letting, because my native instinct would be, or momentum would be to ponder on it, rest on it,
Write it out.
Write it out, but no, it's there. My other
Sitting
comes
with
in. Yeah, my other comes in and then is no uncertain terms. The energy is it won't let me rest. It's you need to act now. You need to move. You need to make moves, and otherwise, I'm left with this nervous And before I knew what it was, at times I didn't actually follow through and do something about it, and then you just feel horrible,
Because pilots are about take control of the situation, so
right.
the situation doesn't take control
right,
of you.
because then you run the risk, and it's happened to me before, where you can, if you don't surf the wave, you don't get ahead of it and actually get the surfboard and get on top of the surfboard and try to surf it, regardless. Because my thing is I might get anxiety about, what if this happens? What if it doesn't work out? But it's you need to get on it. You need to surf, and because that's the only way you're gonna actually ride it out, build something. And even if you don't win this time, it'll build you up for next time. So I just learned that I needed to be mindful and actually respond to that energy when it came on me, and actually do something about it and be proactive. So, even if that particular instance that this energy was generated for didn't go exactly the way that my other would have liked it to, or an ideal situation, it did build me up for in the future to to be able to ride those whatever it was that was my other was impelling me to do.
For
Get
sure.
experienced in a way.
That objective surfing of what I do all the
I'll come back to you. I do want to
Okay.
get this, but I want to get Demas on that because we're kind of talking about the tower to pilot relationship.
So I get both of what Starglow and Jillian was talking about, and that greater meaning, like I know what this means. I get that too, actually, where I experience it as one higher state where I make a certain great connection and feel awed by it, but then all of a sudden I'm just get a bunch of energy where it's like, this means you have to make this move like yesterday. And I experience that as like if for instance, if I'm with someone and I'm feeling that then, and they'll be like, are you okay? I'll just say, I'm feeling a bit of anxiety right now. I'm not going to go into detail, but that's something I describe it as. And when it comes to something like an anxiety attack, I guess there are kind of two kinds. There's the Daryu kind, which is like a fear storm. But then there's also your other, where it's like a kind of diligence or a kind of due diligence, where it's like, okay, things have clicked, and now I have to make this move, or you have to make this move. Here's some energy. Do something with that, because the energy is not just going to disappear. And there are times where I felt I've had to bargain with my other, where it's like I'll feel the anxiety on me, but I'll have to bargain and be like, I can't actually do something about this right now. But I understand and kind of make that pact where it's like, I understand that I have to do something with it. I'm going to do this as soon as I can. I can't do it right now, but I will.
You brought another good point there. Totally. You brought another good point. A concept of dealing with the other is the pact. That's a really good point, because a lot of times the world, your other saying do this, whatever, but you're like, the world's not making that where it'd be ideal to do that right now. But what your other wants is correct to complete you, so you have to be like, okay, you have to negotiate with them, and you'll know if you get it right, because you'll have like this feeling of like, okay, we've made a pact now, and as long as you hold to the pact, you'll be good. You will get some panic attacks if you violate the pact.
Yeah.
Oh goodness, you're like, oh, you said you were going to do this or whatever. You're like, oh.
Yeah, actually, something I experience is like a timeline where I'll have like a dialogue with my other, and will begin with, this is something you need to do, and I'll be like, okay, I'll do that in the future. I won't do it now. And then later on, I'll have another dialogue with where she's like, you haven't done it yet. You still need to do this, and I'll be like, okay, I'll do it later. Tick tock, tick tock. But it eventually gets to the point where it's like, okay, you should have done this already.
Right.
At times like that, that's where it's the last straw. It's like, okay, I have to do something, or make a pact where it's like, I'm going to do it as soon as I have the opportunity to do it.
Seriously, Daryu will get you like just emergency stuff, but like for actually achieving your peak pathway, the urgency of your other saying, you know what I mean? Are you gonna? Is this gonna be a fail? Are you gonna fail your other? No, I will not. No, because your other usually starts out with like, you're awesome. If you did this, you get this. And then, like you said, he starts ratcheting up like, you really need to do this, blah blah blah. But at some point, be like, okay, I'm not gonna hang out with you. If you're gonna be like, if you're gonna be like this, like Bruno alluded to, you do not want your other to go away. You know what I mean? You're like, no, I have to get that back.
I mean, yeah, like if she goes away and then you're like, well, I don't need you anyways, and it's like just both of you are just like, well,
that
won't work. You, yeah.
The others
but that's the other time when I was talking about like if you can imprison someone and separate them from their other, like with some like ridiculously harsh punishment, like that's what I was thinking of. Like
that's a sci-fi horror novel.
Yeah. But that's what I was thinking of. Like this whole period in my life where like I basically was like, look what you made me do. You basically made me do work that like is so far advanced that nobody can understand it. I feel like a crazy person for it. I can't turn my back on it, and everyone else is just like, what is this? What are you doing? What are you saying? And I don't know.
Yeah.
But then, I mean, and that's a lot of why finding Podler has helped, because it's just like, it's a lot of the same thing. Like, a lot of the people here have gone through similar experiences or are going through similar experiences, and a lot of, the Podler work is itself too advanced for mass consumption right now. So it is what it is.
Working on it, but that is the current state, yes.
Yeah.
But I noticed my other is very good at, like, I'm not good at natively at piecing out this is the next step, and the breaking down the little steps, like those little pieces that need to happen before you can predictively have the next result happen. I'm not natively good at that, so that piece of it for me where they validate, yes, you're going in the right path, yes, you're doing the right things, and this is the next little piece. You don't have to, like, because Naiji, I feel like, are better at that, like to break down that.
Directives are going to have the agenda and the abilities to how to step it out as momentum.
Because I don't have that step out.
It goes in reverse as well, which is that you need to kind of be at balance and loosen up a bit to let the good come to you. So if you don't, it won't come to you. But the directives are like, yeah, but if you don't think it through and step it out, it won't. So both sides have half the equation.
Yeah, because my native thing is to just look at every possible thing and every possible thing in every possible place, and but my Naiji can go.
Kind of like the low hanging good just happened.
Yeah, but in a lot of cases you do have to step out the thing to get to the specific goal. If you have a specific thing that you want accomplished, and my Naiji is much better at that than I am. And the other thing I want to bring up, Coach, is that Naiji are so much better at that. Like I was trying to figure out, just not to go into detail on the specifics, but I was trying to figure out a ritual that I needed to have happen in my personal life, and Coach was like, well, yeah, you're doing it right, and I'm like, no, really? No, I mean, because I don't have the map that goes with that.
For sure, but that dynamic, which is going to be Naiji for you, but that will be between adaptives and directives always, which is, kind of giving structure to the adaptives. Adaptives other are natively going to say, this means this, and you have this now. Because, beginning, middle, end, that's a thing, and you have that. And then for directives, there's several things. One is just being at ease with, like, the environment with the stimulus register, but another big one is being at balance. Because, you can flag, we're talking, like, say, like flag forwards. If you're doing it healthily so you can keep going, you have to kind of get a flag forward and then have your adaptive other go, yes. You need that to actually, like, rejuvenate and know you're going the right way and everything is okay. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't experience it as the reward after. I experience it as the... I don't know.
It's always going to be generally meaning and structure. That's what adaptives other is going to bring them in.
It's the pieces of how I get to the thing that I want. Like my other is not, like, you talk about Nexi being the reward a lot of times, or the spending time with Nexi is being the reward a lot of times. For me, it's like no, this is the structure of how I get to the reward. My other is the structure or the plan. The man with the plan, he's the thing that gives me.
This is where wording is tricky and why it's important not to have math to it, because there's two different ways you can look at reward. If you look at reward as inspiration, then that is reward, because structure is inspiration to you if it's correct. But another way of looking at reward is bounty, and the stimulus register powers are heavily associated with bounty, bountifulness of resource, bountifulness of ideas, bountifulness. So a lot of times bountifulness can be used as like a synonym for reward, but actually they're not, because in the case of the other, the reward is inspiration, whatever form that takes for you.
That makes so much more sense, because I have this knee thing all the time.
Possibility, bountifulness, exactly.
That thing all the time. So the reward at the end is not the thing that I'm
correct
looking for. That's not what I'm looking for. I want the help, the partner to make it through this journey with the
plan and the push.
Yes, the one that gives me it's almost like I don't even know how to say it.
A sense of sureness, a sense of like you know what's going on, and
yeah,
it's so much bigger than that.
Adapters can also feel a bit formless, and so their directive counterpart, things like Gina and I, they ritualize something.
Yeah.
It just kind of formed that emotion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very helpful in processing and moving me forward.
And that for you is going to be the reward then.
Mm-hmm.
Even just the naming of something.
Here, I'll make sure we get Mitchell and Glenn in. So I want to throw another item out there for discussion. I'm going to start with them. Make sure we get them in there some. Is talking about riffs that you have of your other, because we have enough data on most of the gender mojos involved for others to kind of talk about that, like which ones you like more or less and things of that nature. As I mentioned myself, just real quickly, Nijai in general I think are spiffy, as are the Jaini and Nizai, which are close related. But I like my experiences. I like a Nijai with a good amount of Jai. That's important to me. And then being sort of outdoorsy with nature or bookish, often things that, because I tend to like to go off by myself and to read books or watch things, kind of by myself for long periods of time. A creature that actually would find that fun, I find easier to understand what I would be doing. But with that said, I'm always finding Nijai from fields that I wouldn't think I would find native. I see them in interviews and I see the energy, I'm like, I could, something could work out there. I mean, it still has the same Nijez connection. So anyway, just kind of noting that if you guys will talk a bit about riffs that continue, are kind of like your go-tos, like those riffs tend to be easier for you to connect with, and then riffs that not all the time, but sometimes, that's neat too. Start with you, Mitchell.
Okay. Like I sometimes find this to be kind of a tough question because like I almost don't want to like set too many boundaries, Like,
no, agreed. So very
feeling,
important.
But
and that's why from the beginning it's always
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I didn't mean to say that you were.
What are some interesting riff trails you've explored so far? Let's call it.
I know we've discussed this before once, in a different discussion, but obviously.
No, I think it may be. Yeah, I don't know.
It'd
be kind of cool to do it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like you, I would appreciate Nijai who would be able to appreciate the kind of things that I'm into. I think that's pretty natural. So, probably ones who would be into math and science kind of stuff would be great, and also that's more bookish. Obviously, I think I appreciate that. That's because that's the kind of stuff that I mostly do with my own life. I don't know what that means as far as powers necessarily. I mean,
yeah, I mean, obviously, I'd like everyone should want an other that has lots of great powers in general, for sure. A question on that though is that there is a balance, and I'm curious how you've noticed in yourself, of riffs that you can see that I'm already into a certain way that I can see that interaction easier. But then also, and this is one wonderful things that your other provides, is exploring oneself, expanding oneself, is that's a riff that I'm not currently into it, but I find myself, if there's
that's a very good point.
I see Nijai all the time in interviews that I'm like, I had this tickle of like, maybe I should pick up a new hobby. That tickle, that my other is more able to instigate, maybe I should give that a go. You know what I mean? I wasn't thinking about it, but she seems cool and she likes that hobby. All right, let me try it.
It works that way. So like it's kind of a two-way street. Like on the one hand, you would hope that you could share what you're into with them, and they would actually be able to receive that gift. But at the same time, on the reverse, you need to constantly be redefining yourself and growing. That's kind of the point of your other, that they have the other half of your story. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely other risks there's all sorts of risks of Nijai that I find appealing, and often it can surprise me.
Cool. Glenn, your thoughts on that?
As far as riffs go, there's lots of Nijai riffs that are interesting, and I do notice that there's certain kinds of riffs, and there's certain kinds of Nijai, like actresses or whatever the case may be, that are just I like their energy. That's what I notice the most. Is just like, I like this person. I like what they have to say. I think what they have to say is very important and it's valuable, and I can see myself dialoguing with this person, really getting into a good discussion with them, and I just like their character. There's something about them in general. They're interesting. They're fascinating. They have good they have a good jai, I guess you could say, and they're just well put together as far as like a human goes, as your other, and that's just that's typically what I find attractive in certain kinds of like Nijai. And that can be that I'm talking mainly in terms of females because I am heterosexual, but there are male Nijai that I'm like, wow, that guy's really cool. That guy seems like he's a real he seems like a really cool guy. Like I wanna tag along in their life sort of and sort of like see what.
You're like, I think I could have a good rapport with them, and I would like to have a good rapport. I feel like I want to have that. Sure.
Yeah, it seems like you could really spend some good time and be like, yeah, buddy, you could like be pals with them in a way, right?
Definitely.
So yeah, that's how I feel when it comes to like Nijai that I like really like, and then when it comes to Nijai that I don't really know so much about, and I'm like, I definitely notice they're different. They're not like what I'm used to, but I find that like appealing in a way. I'm like, that's interesting. There's something about their energy that is like different, and they seem to be really good at this kind of like this thing that seems like weird to me, but it's sort of like you don't necessarily dislike it, you don't necessarily like it, you're just like, it's different, and it's sort of like interesting, and you kind of like feel compelled to want to delve in deeper and see more about that and see what the value is in that, because you don't really see it at first, and that's interesting too.
Definitely, make a point. I guess we keep going around then. Charlene?
I've resonated with both what Mitchell and Glenn said in terms of risks of Jinai that I find appealing. It generally has to do with kind of their energy, good energy, their character. How I feel like I could have a good rapport with them. I can visualize myself like interacting with them and.
If you don't mind, I think I'm asking this on Glenn, but I'll definitely ask you now. Maybe come back to him as well. Yeah. Is on that? Are there any kind of vague or amorphous, but are there kind of themes or anything that would you notice on ones that give that feeling to you that you feel like I could have that rapport there? Like he was saying, like they seem really interesting or whatever. Like,
well, for me, those Jinai tend to have something in their life that's like a cause, one cause or several causes that they advocate for or are involved in. So they seem to be more than just superficially like charming or socially appealing to people. Although there's not knocking down. I'm sure.
Charisma, yeah.
Yeah, charisma.
I think we all know what you meant.
Yeah, but someone who would be comfortable both in like physical activities, like athletic activities, being outdoors, but also like in talking like more in more introspective activities, or like watching shows or stuff that's not necessarily like going out and socializing or doing outdoor things.
So
we're
space-
well-rounded, I guess.
well-rounded.
Well-rounded. Someone who has a G9 that has well-rounded, good development, and that I've seen that in different arenas. I mean, I've seen in like one that always really like gravitated towards is sort of like an avatar, but what's the guy who's like the explorer guy who
Josh Bernstein.
Josh Bernstein. Yeah, Josh, like an
He's
adventurer,
awesome.
like a Renaissance man, because who could like you could go anywhere with that person and just like do
Stuff.
spiffy stuff, and it just makes things more heightened and interesting. Yeah, so
The one Josh Bernstein,
Yeah.
for example, that's kind of good as a specific example. He actually radiates more than say some riffs of G9, a baseline setting of friendly. Some G9 they may come off as more neutral, or they may even go with baleful slightly as their baseline. He actually, but he's not super solicitous, which maybe can see as weak. So he's not super solicitous, but he is very friendly.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that makes you feel like you talk to, or you feel safe with, or something, or?
Yeah, yeah, not thinking about it.
When you mentioned, I was
probably
trying to note his game in my head. I'm like, what are some
some
kind of
elements.
elements of his game?
Yeah, probably thinking back now, like in terms of G9 that I find appealing is in terms of their setting would be where they have good G development, like and our friend like have a friendly setting, but not to where they are too needing too much of trying too hard or needing too much attention or too like where they give themselves away to everyone, and so then it's hard to like really figure out for me, at least like who that person really
Do they really like you?
what they care about, truly care about.
Do they care about you? Yeah.
Yeah.
I totally resonate with a lot of that, Jailene, because I look for there's this activism piece, this reshaping of the world to a better place that's like and being passionate about that's absolutely necessary for me to want to be with someone, that code of conduct that comes with that, and that feeling of specialness, because for Naiji, I want that vulnerability in our safe bubble, but that does not, like, I do not want them to be overly identified with the rest of the world. That's part of that for me, it's the us commitment against the world type of thing that goes along with so much of the jazz storyline too, but they need to have enough of that G charm that it like greases the wheels in the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah, where it's not totally like
they understand Bristol.
Yeah,
Smooth
exactly.
It.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and definitely an affinity for nature is necessary for me. That appreciation of the V part of it, because I don't always notice the actual V part of it in the world, and when the V is brought to my attention, it's like that is like a gift to me when they bring that V to my attention. That's like little, they just turn the Christmas lights on the world for me, and that Zai rock of steadiness. They are my rock. They're my soul. They're my handle on how the world works. They're the reason. Like it's that meaning thing. They are the reason for my world. There's this, and that may sound a little, I don't know, codependent, but it's not really codependent. It's more it's more we become mutually dependent on each other is my ideal setting.
The influence of your other makes you want to be more worthy and level up as a human being, then
Yeah.
it's a good drive.
Yeah.
I mean, like
Right.
I don't let Nexi make it where I'm codependent or I'm in any way whipped. I'm not that kind of person. However, with that said, my drive to have her feel favorably towards me, well, I mean, it's so intense, and I don't think there's anything wrong with, like, I really want that more than anything. I think, like, I want that creature to admire me.
And there's a very big piece that a lot of Naiji tend to, they get set in their Zai, they get their Zai settings like on super high, that they forget that piece that mutual relationships are about mutual change. And so if they're not willing to be vulnerable and change, you know.
Right. And that can be Zai. But often that comes from Ji, believe it or not. That's for all really Ji users, but also I'd say directives. You basically have certain roles, certain functions that you perform, and there can be a feeling like I don't want to be weak, I don't want to look like I'm falling down, I'm unable to be the person who can do. I'm a doer. And that need to, like, I'm a doer can sometimes become I'm a doer who can do without their other. Do you know what I mean? Like that's not actually healthy to actually be like, I'm such a doer that I don't need the other half of my peak pathway. You know what I mean?
And it's this mutual respect that comes out of, yes, I see how that would be beneficial, and I am willing to make that, even though that task may be difficult, I'm willing to make that change because that will make everything better. That willingness to see that piece is something it's an absolute.
That's integral to really any social alchemy. If you look at the math of any social alchemy, in fact, it even gets more. You have to pristine with that as you get to alchemies that are further away. You have to come at it from that position, or it won't work. Your other actually can sometimes floats with stuff just because there's so much inspirational energy going around, but still, there as well, you want to do that, and the motivation obviously is the highest.
I think they get dinged so much.
I don't think I actually heard from.
Sorry.
Yet. That was wonderful. Thank you for that. Demas and Bruno haven't gone on this topic. I'd like to get their thoughts. Demas, for example, you already mentioned some riffs being better, but you were talking more about a generational thing, and that there is a general kind of thing. Are there some specifics? Like with vloggers, there's a lot of different kind of vloggers. Even Xenai female vloggers, there's quite a few riffs in there. Any preferences?
Yeah, that's the topic I'm talking about. Preferences of riffs.
That's what we were talking this time. This time around the table, we were basically just kind of mentioning specific riffs. You mentioned actual specific,
okay,
or just specific, kind of specific kinds of Xenai that you've noticed. Like, yeah.
Well, so I guess as kind of a backdrop to where my headspace is at, then in general, like before I even started doing pod layer, then I've always been a bit of like an out there zine, and then even when I started doing it, now that increases tenfold, not in a bad sense, but in my natural headspace, the things that are occupying my mind are probably going to confuse the shit out of you. And that comes with a feeling of alienation, in that, like, I'm afraid to try and connect with you because you're either going to think I'm weird or you're going to think I'm the enemy. And so there's this fear to find out. And what I find inspiring, or most inspiring in certain riffs of Xenai, is ones where it's like that I feel that I can be raw with that creature and they will get what I'm saying.
The vulnerability.
And are there certain riffs that you think that you've noticed have more of that quality?
Yeah, certain riffs. I don't know about riffs per se.
Is it career backgrounds, or is it subjects they cover, or is it their attitude?
It's more like attitude and well, attitude, a combination of the two. Attitudes and subjects they cover, just because like journalists, not all of them might be. Journalists might not have an equally strong connection or development of Nye or a certain open-mindedness, but some may. And the same thing goes with Xeni who maybe do spiritual stuff. They're not necessarily on equal footing. So it's not so much like a riff of career path as it is specific samples who I guess in themselves make up a kind of riff.
Please go ahead and do that if you don't mind, because as Shailene mentioned when Josh Burson, is there one or two you can think of? Because that's one of the wonderful things, we actually have data we can look at.
I think out of the samples we have, hands down, the most inspiring to me is Amber Lyon. She's the
Love
journalist.
her.
Yeah, she's the journalist who she started out by basically whistleblowing CNN and how they were covering up oppressive regimes, and then kind of just made it her mission to kind of tell the stories no one else is telling. And then and right now she's focusing on psychedelics and their healing properties. And so she's one specifically who, like, I've followed like a lot of what she has to say and how she thinks and stuff like that, and I could see that she's on a level that's just I haven't really seen any other Xeni match.
Is that
And
level, is that just her enlightenment or her intellect or how she carries herself? What is it that you find her level so impressive?
I want to say all three. Enlightenment in the sense that she's allowed herself to experience things, and she actually refers to her journalism as submersive journalism, in the sense where she actually kind of goes native, where like actually gets involved and experience it, and you can't really do that without becoming a higher level of enlightenment. And also the way that she thinks, like she's not afraid to be spiritual, she's not afraid to be emotional, even though that's a kind of way, and be vocal about it, even though that right now we're in a climate where like there's wars between atheism and religion, where you have one side that's dogmatic and memed up and another side that's just hostile to all spirituality. So you take on a risk to expose that, or take on a risk to expose that side of yourself. And then also just like as far as development goes, where like there's like it looks so unrestrained and shiny, you know? Like you see vigorous Z, Nye, V, and Jai, like it's all kind of just equally vigorous. It's not like lopsided or anything like that. So her in particular, that is a riff that like I was able to kind of like internalize and then call upon when I need to talk to or explain things to. And if I dialogue with the spirit of her and she gets it, then I'm on track, you know, because it's out of all of them, that's the one that I feel like is going to get it. A lot of kind of like thresholds that I set as a baseline for myself is if I was in front of a Xeni journalist right now, can I make the case to them to want to break the story? And so that's why it's important to me to have like a riff like hers, one that is actually that I consider heroic and enlightened enough to understand, that I could kind of use as this barometer, you know, for my own spirit forming process of am I at the level that I need to be?
For sure, because it does combination. It gives you something like that creature would make this conversation possible, but then I would have to bring it. You kind of get both of those things.
Yeah.
Awesome. We don't have much time here, about another 10 minutes or so. I'll make sure to get Bruno in on this rotation on riffs that you found inspiring. It can be general ones and also maybe ones that are just unusual, but just sometimes you find them inspiring. But anything at all.
I posted a lot about this on the forum. I had several examples there, and I don't know how like universal this is or whatever, but it does feel like in some sense, it matches up with like, for example, Coach, your experience of like the elevator of enlightenment in different forms, having a hierarchy, some of them bringing you higher, and other ones not quite as high, but still being necessary and enjoyable in their own way.
Right.
And um, yeah, it's a little difficult for me to unpack because for so long I've thought of them more how you think of Nexi rather than how, for example, Starglow described her other. Um, the way that I correspond with my other is a lot closer to Nexi. Your relationship with Nexi, as you described, which is more like she's there to like keep your spirits up as sort of like a playful companion. But you're the source of the serious drive, and for me, even though it is a knee version, there's still like this relentless, incredible drive to like very specific, very focused, um, and very much globalized and universalized in its thinking. And so, it's just a very serious and a goal-driven form of need that I have, I guess. So I need a lot of like relief for
Well,
that.
so knee is not natively like that. So what you're talking about is either a use of knee, or more likely you're talking about your synamnia, your overall synamnia.
Yeah, just like I just have like exactly. It's not the knee. It's not exactly the knee. Like I do get like on camera, I'm not like how I am to myself privately, which is much more like knee, like your typical knee idea of knee. But
Because knee's not structured.
Right, as a power stop, but in synamnia connection with other powers, it can be used.
yeah, I just have such like an overflow of connection from the Nai. Like it's just so massive that it's basically like part of me. Like it's really difficult to like. It's the reason why you guys thought I was a Naiji for 2 years. Like it's the reason a lot of people around me have thought that for however long. It's just, and so it's, I don't know if it's like the way that I structure the forms like I did on the thread is more specific, or in some way it's actually maybe more universal. It all relates to like a lot of experiences that I had in a relatively short period of time, and like I ever since then I've just like sort of been like a hermit, and I've always sort of been very reclusive, and
This gets into, for example, why it's so important to get one's mojo read. There's a lot of implications, but one of the most immediate and impactful is to be able to explore the relationship with your other, more accurately.
yeah, I mean,
Can I just throw this that there's a specific thing where Ni and Z combine, which is which it seems like what you're describing, Bruno.
no, it's
It
not.
doesn't actually sound like
It doesn't really feel like that at all. It feels like a Nai connection to an agenda, a worldview. I mean, that may be the case for you, but like for me,
We don't know exactly what it is, but Ni itself has the open-ended quality to it. But for sure, there could be the Z, but also Vi and Nai. It can be connected to any of the powers on the directive side to give it more of a fixated quality.
yeah, I mean, it's
Ni's not fixated.
right. But for me,
Right.
like, my personal experience of it is that the two Tsunami oceans of Ni and Nai for me are very closely related to the point where it's difficult to tell the difference between the two. It's not at all about Z. Like Z comes in when I'm doing like the mathematical, scientific side of it. But yeah,
Z is actually how you structure your threads. That's Z.
right. But I just kind of want to wrap it up in shit, I forgot what I was trying to say. Let me back it up. Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
But this what you're saying, that's like your experience. Does that relate then to, what your dialogue is? Because I mean,
Absolutely, yeah. My dialogue with my other is very much about like support and playfulness. Like that's what I look for. But no, that's not what I was trying to say. Which I forgot.
It's okay. And then when I was having things, and if you have it come back to you, Bruno, you can just go and jump in.
Okay.
We have about 5 minutes left. Is there any kind of thoughts anyone else has before we call for the day? It was a very good discussion. I'll just throw this out at the end here, is that obviously we've been talking tonight about the other, but we've been focusing on the ideal inspiration. But your other is really everything that you are not that completes you. So it does include, obviously, the other two in the inspirational pyramid, for me, say, Jaini and Nizai. But really, it can be in friendships. It can be in, for example, myself, like Nexi sometimes, I will be on an adventure and she will constellate a bunch of people. She won't be there, but sort of like the way the story goes, I'll end up with like, you know, a bunch of Nizi and Jinai and other people and Z9. I'm having like adventures and so forth, and that bountifulness of characters has to do with the connection that other being good. So the stronger connection to your other is, the more it should naturally unfold into the other storylines. We touched on how your other makes you try things out that are good for you that you wouldn't maybe natively have thought to do or want to do on your own. That will make you fulfill your story. But if you keep doing that with your other, you pump that story like a heart, it will naturally start undulating out into the other storylines. Starting with, for example, like if I'm not Nezhez, the Nezhez and Genez stories. So the same kind of finding the higher ground for you and your other, that practice, you use it to find the common higher ground with your story and another story. So your other really teaches you kind of how to be, including your own powers, because a lot of times you need to know that, well, you need to know your own 4 powers natively, for sure, but then the rest of it, the rest of the package, your other is there. The native drives of your conscious powers won't take you there. You'll have to use your conscious power specifically to reach out to their unconscious genius counterpart, and in doing that, you'll discover the next, things that the HRL RPG allows for. New bonuses be unlocked. Anyone before we head off? All right, cool beans. That was a wonderful discussion, and I'll see everyone on the next hangout.
Awesome.
All right, good night, everyone.
Good night,
Thanks,
everyone.
everybody.
Thanks for sharing, everyone.
Guys,
Thanks for sharing.
Thank you. It was awesome.